I have to say, after getting some more games both as and against the Blue Scribes, they are probably the most fun part of this DLC. Even if they're not necessarily super competitive, they can be quite good if you get lucky on their spell rolls and give you access to, you know, like healing or summons or other very strong ability types. But they do have a ranged attack, which is quite nice. They're on an armor-piercing chariot. Pretty terrible stats, but in a pinch in a late game, they can try and move into melee. They do have very low HP, though. So, given how expensive they are quite risky to take in many matchups. Slaanesh is probably one of the safest to take. Slaanesh lacking flying tools and ranged units for the most part. My opponent here, Lenorm, longtime friend of the channel, has brought Azazel up in the sky, who will be able to threaten the Blue Scribes somewhat. But to help screen him out, we've got some blue horrors as well. Mutilith Vortex Beasts to help win the melee engagements with some Marauders and some Zangors, as well as a Forsaken and Chaos Knight in the back. Lord is going to be the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch, just with Sword of Change. No spells here, just the Chaos Spawn summon, so that I can dedicate all my Winds of Magic to the Blue Scribes for Lenorm's Slaanesh. He's got Azazel up in the sky here, Bringers of Beguilement out on the far side, Devoted Marauder, Spears, some Fiends and Hellstriders, a couple of spawns here in the near ground, a couple of Chaos Warriors with Hell Scourges, and some Devoted Spear Marauders with the Mirror Guard also. You can see me unleashing a little Chill Wind there from the Lore of Dark, going to Frostbite and damage those Chaos Warriors as they advance. Going to kind of slide my formation to meet, since Lenorm's got quite a bit of mobility and even infantry pretty far away here. I can try and overload some resources onto this part of the engagement. Another little Tide Call there, AoE damage spell, and of course the Blue Scribe's shooting attack. Again, pretty solid. I'm going to try and use it as much as possible to shoot Azazel, because he is going to be quite vulnerable to that with his lack of armor, reliant on physical resistance. But you can see there, Lenorm just expertly dodging. For the most part, he does take some damage there from the mass of blues. It's hard not to when there's literally thousands of blues, or 1,000 probably, shooting at you. Quite intense, but Chaos Knights are going to countercharge in on the Hell Scourges and the spawns. I'm pretty happy to just leave these Chaos Knights in combat here as sort of a mobile infantry unit, if you will. They are quite defensive and should be able to hold out just fine, at least for an extended period of time, not necessarily win that fight, but Mutilith Vortex Beast getting involved in the front line. I have to say, I know a lot of people are disappointed about the volume of content in this DLC, me being among those people. The animations and generally the sort of cool factor of the single entities, which is a lot of this DLC actually is single entities, like non-character single entities, but like, look at that, come on. Absolutely cool, especially with little tentacles like popping around as it goes. Of course, a laser beam on the back, the Mutilith Vortex Beast you'll see popping off. But anyway, over on the far side here, these Zangors get eaten up very quickly by Slaanesh's aggression. Azazel pops down to try and duel the Lord of Tzeentch there. He'll do okay, my Lord of Tzeentch, holding out against Azazel. He's not the greatest combatant, but you see that spell is this, I forget the name of it, to be honest, but anyway, Fascination, is it? I don't know. It's going to be able to come in and kind of disrupt, debuff the leadership? What is that spell even? Phantasmagoria, that's right. Leadership and a hard snare. Does kind of prevent my Forsaken and other units from reinforcing, but Blue Scribes have got Lore of Plague. Plague, of course, is the name of the spell. But this giant Skaven just absolutely taking a dump all over Slaanesh's forces here, especially those Bringers of Beguilement. That in and of itself just got a crazy amount of value, I'm sure, for the Blue Scribes. Almost up to 100 kills now. Yeah, 1,300 value. So considering they cost, what, like 2,100 base price, and then you can also take this ability. I didn't actually bring it in this one to save on cost, but you can give them Spell Mastery as well. But right now, looks like the Chaos Knights are suffering pretty badly in that engagement. I'm going to pull them out if I can. Zangor's trading just fine against Marauder Spears out on the flank, and the Forsaken also had come in and done some pretty good damage. They're also taking significant damage, but a little Shield of Thorns there to help, because their melee defense is so low. They're going to be taking a lot of hits. They get that damage reflection back, and it helps finish off the Bringers of Beguilement and also do some damage to those Fiends as well. Don't think the Forsaken will last too much longer, but Mutilith Vortex Beast gets caught up on just some spawn. I really need him fighting over in this huge blob of troops, and, you know, especially There's like Mirror Guard there, and the Chaos Warrior is reasonably high value. Instead, he's just kind of stuck fighting these spawns, which is fine. He's anti-large damage. We'll be able to take down the spawns, but I'm missing out on some Mortis Drain, which could definitely be helping in this engagement. The blue scribes are suffering. We've got summoned Chaos Spawn here. We're starting to run low on their timer. Looks like they've got about another 30 seconds to be on the field, which is definitely nice for me. They do trade quite cost efficiently, especially considering they're a summon against these fiends here. So they'll be able to help shore up this flank and kind of stabilize things to a degree as their big brother, the Mutalith, this giant single entity spawn, basically. It's quite a jumpy boy, I have to say. He's got some hops. I mean, if you take a look at his quads, you will realize that yeah, this guy could probably squat like a 5-story building, but that's neither here nor there. What is here certainly are the fiends and Zazel himself trying their best to finish off. Mutalith has taken a substantial amount of damage, but Slaanesh's leadership is starting to have some serious problems. And the whole time the blue scribe's just been, you know, popping off. It's going to throw a little Fog of the Damned there to debuff the melee attack of these units. As this big melee blob comes, we're going to get the knights charging in to reinforce. Mirror Guard doing their best to fight it out. The Mutalith is just quite strong. It is a big old Vortex Beast. It's quite expensive. I say Mortis Beast is what I meant to say, yeah. And the Mortis effect is actually quite strong, right? It is in terms of the damage scaling towards the upper end. Wow, look at Azazel just getting straight lasered in the face there. Pretty brutal day for him for sure. But, and then, yeah, this also, let's see, does direct damage. 0% armor piercing, interesting. And gives a disoriented contact effect. Okay, so let's see if we can actually spot that on Azazel. It looks like... no, just the Aura of Mutation, so I guess I don't really understand how this ability works, and that's fine, I'll figure it out. But the Tides of Mutation is something that's here. Also, the Gift of Mutation +5, or +8 melee attack, rather. I didn't even realize, again, learn something new every day. But, is that actually going off right now? Let's see. This guy should be showing it on his unit card. Yep, he is, so that's actually pretty nice as well. The Mutalith is quite expensive, has a decent amount of HP, but very vulnerable to missiles. Only 70 armor, no missile or physical resistance. Yeah, can definitely get bursted down by missiles pretty quickly. And in general, it's best used in the more melee-oriented matchups, but as a kind of Mortis Beast, it's definitely up there for the better ones. I do think in a future balance patch, Creative Assembly needs to go through and kind of smooth out a lot of the damages of various Mortis-type units, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end screen, right after we watch the blue scribes. They're going to give themselves a little sneaky stabbing, move into melee, start throwing some scrolls, and try and just outduel Azazel here. Kind of funny little attack animations using the quills. Pen's mightier than the sword, I guess, or the quill in this case. Fantastic. Yeah, big fan of the blue scribes. Well, I say big fan. At their current cost, they're like more of a meme than anything. They can be good if you get good rolls on them, but if they costed maybe a couple 100 points less, we'll look at that in just a minute, like maybe 300 points less, they would be a lot more doable. Here, they were just about able to pay for themselves. Mutalith is obviously a heavy carry, getting 3,000 damage value, 25,000 damage dealt. Definitely is a big one, especially for Slaanesh, almost completely lacking in ranged units. This is no-brainer for sure in terms of bringing it in this matchup. And then, yeah, I unfortunately don't get to see the summons value or the Sorcerer Lord to see if he actually contributed anything meaningful. But look at that, value on those Forsaken, a little bit of that coming from the Shield of Thorns there, but just in general, trading very cost-effectively. Best score also, one of them just gets demolished, but another one does okay fighting out on that flank. Getting up some Marauders, Blues, definitely reasonably cost-effective in most circumstances. For Lenorm here, yeah, the Fiends is a little bit of an interesting pick. Fiends I used to be a big fan of, but in some melee matchups they can be pretty good as well, but spawns tend to just be more cost-effective overall. Azazel I definitely understand, though, in terms of hunting air targets in this matchup. You've got quite a few, like Kairos. Blue Scribes, it's not a super common pick, I would imagine, but it is one you might see from time to time. So it's definitely interesting. Let's just quickly check here on a couple things for Tzeentch. First, let's talk about Scribes. base price. So you can see they're quite expensive. 2480 with their spell siphon, which increases spell mastery when they or any other spellcaster, be it friend or foe, nearby casts a spell. It's okay. I mean, it is one you can definitely come in and cut if you need to. Given 2300 base price, again, you reduce that down to 2000, and I think these guys are all pretty decently viable. It does kind of depend on the spells you get access to when you're casting, and if your opponent has the tools to counter them or not, given how squishy they are. Even at 2000 would be pretty risky, but still can be quite fun in certain matchups. And then let's quickly just talk about Mortis type effects, and this is not going to be an exhaustive list by any means, but just to quickly touch on a few. Beastmen have a couple now. I mean, Jabberslith isn't one you see very often. This one's fine. It's melee conditional, but just so you start to get an idea of how the damage is kind of all over the place on these different effects. This one is 8 to 16. 8 to 16 also on Flock of Doom. If we come in here and go to Bretonia, of course, the Fey Enchantress also has one, the Miss of the Lady here, 8 to 16 with a -5 melee attack. So far they seem all fairly consistent. But then if we get into other factions here, such as Nurgle, right? You look at Kugath, he has a much stronger, if I can find it in this massive host, yeah, 16 to 32, which I believe is the same as what the Mutalith Vortex Beast has. So again, it's not necessarily that I dislike having, a spread, and I think it's fine to have some variability in the effectiveness of these abilities, but the spread is pretty extreme right now, given some of them do literally double the amount of damage, and it just doesn't seem particularly consistent that, relating to necessarily like the cost of the unit. Or, because, I mean, you think about, like, the Plague Priest is one that's kind of been forgotten about, but the Plague Furnace does have a similar ability. If you come in here, that Billowing Death, it's only 5 to 10, which is even weirder. So, again, it's just I'd like to see some consistency in this area, and I feel like it would help smooth out balance between quite a few different factions. I would definitely trend towards the lower end, so, like, for example, the Mutalith Vortex Beast and the Pestilent Decay for Nurgle probably should get toned down rather than toning the other abilities up, but that's kind of my soapbox for today. I mean, again, not an exhaustive list, but there's a handful of others you might see. Warpstone Armor, again, very low. It used to be that the this Billowing Furnace or Billowing Death, rather, was the same scaling as I think the Fey Enchantress's Mortis effect. Anyway, of course, I should probably real quick talk about the actual Mortis itself, the one whose kind of name is lent to this entire unit class. This one has a higher damage scaling, yeah, 16 to 32, somewhat balanced out by the fact that it's a little bit squishy. It doesn't have a ton of HP or armor, a reasonable amount, but not an insane amount. Very low melee defense, quite a big hitbox as well. So it's somewhat balanced out by that fact, but yeah, I don't know. I think it would be fine to maybe take these down to, I don't know, like 26 damage, or maybe something a little bit closer into the 16 here of these other ones. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below, though. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.